Welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy presents our NBA Fantasy Baller DFS edition for Tuesday, April 25th, 2017. For those of you who, like me, and get excited by nothing more. To me, there's no better time of the year. For some people, it's the playoffs, it's the Super Bowl, but for me, it's Christmas, and we are 1/3 of the way until Christmas. I'm sure everyone out there doesn't want to hear that, but my level of excitement is through the roof today. In case you don't know, my name is Nick from CWE on all of your favorite daily fantasy sites, and I am here to talk about the NBA DFS slate for Wednesday here. We had Golden State close out Portland last night, so now we are down to just 6 series going. We have one series here that could wrap up tonight. So going to be interesting to see how things proceed moving forward. I think I looked at the schedule and it's still a bunch of 3-game sets. But as you get more and more of those if necessaries on the slate, I'm just trying to say I wonder if we're going to start to see some 2-day basketball as opposed to having slates to play every single night. Let's start off with the game that could wrap up tonight, and that is OKC, after playing some really competitive basketball, heading back to Houston to take on the Rockets. I mean, from my perspective here on the Houston side of the ball, you'd have to think that Russell Westbrook has something special planned for this game. I mean, I know that kind of sounds weird. What can he really have special? I guess what I'm trying to say is, with his team on the brink of elimination, it's not going to surprise me if we see a 55, 12-12 line out of him in an effort to try to keep this team afloat. And it still might not be enough, to be honest with you. It's good to see that guys like Andre Roberson, I mean, he's been, he deserves all the credit in the world because maybe he can't shoot free throws, but this guy has played at a level that I don't think most of us thought he was capable of. So big props to him for being able to do that. He's on our radar tonight. I think outside of Russ for sure and Roberson, everything outside of that starts to look at like a toss-up. You're dealing with a situation where you have Victor Oladipo, who could potentially put together a decent game. Steven Adams finally came around. Taj Gibson has the potential. Whether it comes through or not is a different story. Really disappointed with how the Thunder used Enes Kanter in this series. I don't know what exactly is going on there, but you would assume with a guy that was pretty dominant at times during the season that they would have found more use of him in the postseason, but that hasn't been the case. Moving on to the Houston side of the ball, if Russ is going to go hard, I expect James Harden to go just as hard. You're getting a 2K discount. I don't think the ceiling is necessarily the same. I take that back. I think the ceiling probably is the same, but if you had to ask me, like in a 5-game series, which one of the two hit 70 fantasy points more, I would say at a 2-to-1 ratio, probably I'd say Russ to Harden, but that doesn't mean Harden's out of play tonight. It probably does mean that you're not playing both Russ and Harden. You could. It leaves you with enough on FanDuel to do it, but I think there's better places to get plays today. Outside of that, I think Eric Gordon and Lou Williams are still kind of my favorite plays. The shots falling for them right now. They're both underpriced for what they are capable of. That's what I'm focusing on, is guys that are underpriced. And beyond that, Trevor Ariza has just been there to be there. Hasn't really contributed much offensively through this series. You could always take a flyer with Patrick Beverley, Nene, or Clint Capella, so I don't necessarily think that those guys are off our radars. I just think that the guard position, specifically the shooting guard position, is where it's at tonight for Houston. All right, let's move to a series that, quite frankly, I'm shocked is 2-2 right now, and I'm sure Greg Popovich isn't exactly happy with his players. Memphis now goes back to San Antonio, where they just really struggled to play thus far. On the Memphis side of things, it's really down. It's just 3 guys. It's Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, Marcus All. Any one to two of those three, probably not all three, could have some big games tonight. And the pricing on them is pretty fair. Gasol under 8K is something I'm always going to look at. And I don't hate Vince Carter. The price under 4K on FanDuel, he hasn't been doing anything on a regular basis to make us want to play him. But at the same time, eventually I just have to feel like he's going to get it together. And when he does, I don't think he's going to have a ton of ownership. So that's where I'm kind of sticking to with my Memphis coverage tonight. Moving on from those guys to San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard, just an absolute monster. He really needs help from his team. Tony Parker looks a lot better than he did in the regular season. There's no questioning that. So I like the potential of using Tony Parker here. LaMarcus Aldridge has to step it up. He had been pretty consistent throughout the series, so I don't doubt that he'll be able to do it in this game tonight, but still a little more risk than I'd like if we're being completely honest with each other. Outside of that, could you use Pau Gasol? You could. If David Lee gets another start, I'm definitely tempted to go there. But, I think that this could be a situation where we see this series wrap up in the next two games. I think Memphis is a good basketball team, just not so sure that they're a team that makes it to the second round, especially at the feet of San Antonio. Last game of the night, Utah and LAC. This is unquestionably a situation where I want to do my best to avoid altogether. Utah plays way too slow. We've seen them seemingly slow it down even in the playoffs. The series shifts back to LA. Don't think that really means too much. These are two good quality basketball teams that aren't contingent on having to be at a certain place to win. On the Utah side of the ball, at a slightly depressed price, Gordon Hayward's worth a look. I mean, it's not my favorite play. I think a lot of people will gravitate to Joe Johnson, but his price has come up pretty good over the last couple weeks here. George Hill, one and done. That's all he's been able to put together thus far this year. So I don't really like the upside of using him. Rudy Gobert on FanDuel needing near 50 points, just not really in my wheelhouse tonight. I don't think I'm missing anyone there. Joe Ingles, I think, is a guy you could probably use. On the Clippers, it's pretty much just going to be Chris Paul for me. Everyone else has proved that they're not really in it, they're being taken out of the game one way or another. Paul has to front all the offense for this team. If I'm taking flyers on guys, it would probably be my boy Luke Ricard-Mbah-a-Moute first, Jamal Crawford second, and DeAndre Jordan third. Jordan, really surprising that he didn't come through with Rudy Gobert out. Now with him back, becomes a little tougher, so I don't absolutely love the matchup for him. But Chris Paul, guy who could do it in a lot of different ways. I think his floor in this game is 50 fantasy points. I don't think his ceiling is a monster ceiling. It's probably only 60, but someone I want to look into tonight. That wraps it up for us today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our NBA mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.